Hey, shalom, shalom, shalom. This is your brother, Quadar of GMS Gulf Coast. I'd like to start by giving all praise, honor, and glory to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh, Ba'ashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rekah, Quadash. Double honors are given up to the apostle, elders of Great Millstone, men who have labored and suffered in this truth for over 30 plus years, making their lives and their bodies a living sacrifice. I also like to extend the shalom to the hopefully elect, the 1/3 of the nation of Israel, which consists of men, women, and children in that order, as well as the various GMS camps, elders, and heads. Last but not least, I'd like to extend the shalom to any of you Akim not named GMS, but walking one body, one spirit in Yahweh Shai, preaching and teaching this 100% truth as it is taught to us all by the apostle elders of Great Millstone. To you all, shalom. Abaratazar, Lord willing, this be edifying. I was looking at a program here on TV, and Sigmund Freud came across the screen, and through the spirit, I took pre-psych a few years back. I think it was in '07. I was trying to acquire a degree in electrical technology, and pre-psychology was one of the classes that I took. And in doing so, you get introduced to Sigmund Freud, supposedly be the father of psychology. Anyway, his son, it's like his great nephew, Edwin Bernays, came to mind. It's all through the spirit, I just thought I'd do a quick video on this topic. Well, willing to be edifying. But the subject matter of the video is propaganda. And like I said, looking at a clip on TV, and Sigmund Freud it's like his name came across, and it just opened up. It opened up some old classroom lessons. I'll just say that. It's like, anyway, I'm going to read the article here. Let's see. Edward Bernays was Sigmund Freud's nephew. Actually, he was the son of Sigmund Freud's sister. Let's see, was they related? Yes, they were related. The link between this theory and practice was Edwin L. Bernays, the acknowledged father of public relations and nephew of Sigmund Freud. Bernays was born in Vienna, Austria in 1891, but grew up in New York City. His mother was Sigmund Freud's sister, and his father was the brother of Freud's wife, Martha Bernays. So there's your connection now. He was actually, his father was, his mother was Freud's sister, and his father was the brother of Freud's wife. So, there it is. But it says right here that the acknowledged father of public relation, otherwise propaganda. Public relation goes into that propaganda. It says psychoanalyst shapes consumer culture. I'm just clicking onto it to see here. Psychoanalyst, let's see. What it says, psychoanalyst shapes consumer culture. It says on how Sigmund Freud, his nephew, and a box of cigars forever changed America's marketing. Let's delve into it. It says, who knew that Sigmund Freud, the father of psychoanalysts, I hope I'm pronouncing that correct, and critic of all things American, was an unwitting contributor to the rise of Western consumer culture. It says women sporting cigarettes as a symbol of female empowerment and the ubiquitous bacon and egg breakfast were two public relation campaign inspired by Freudian ideas. Thus, you get that terminology, the Freudian slip, where someone says something that they've been keeping secret, but they want to apply that, give credit to a man, but that goes into the scriptures where the Lord, make your own tongues fall upon yourselves. I'm gonna grab that later. Anyway, I'm gonna keep reading. Point being that they give credit to these so-called white men for this and that. Anyway, it says the link between theory and practice was Edward L. Bernays, the acknowledged father of public relation and nephew of Sigmund Freud. Again, Sigmund Freud is someone you will learn about in psychology. Bernays was born in Vienna, Austria in 1891, but grew up in New York City. His mother was Freud's sister, and his father was the brother of Freud's wife, Martha Bernays. He maintained contact with his uncle, and the family often joined Freud for summer holidays in the Alps. Bernays began his career shaping public opinion by creating a media campaign to raise awareness of venereal disease and sexual hypocrisy. But his application for psychoanalytics principles to public relation and advertising came only after reading Freud's general introductory lecture, A Gift from Freud to His Nephew, and thanks for a box of Havana cigars. In this case, a cigar did prove to be much more than a cigar. The marriage of psychoanalysts and public relation, facilitated by the box of Havanas, made Bernays a very wealthy man. Manipulating behavior. And that's basically what this is. This man being the father of public relation, or AKA propaganda. The government, by and large, and the mainstream news platforms employed this man's tactics to do what? To govern the people, to persuade the behavior of the masses. It says, intrigued by Freud's notion that irrational focus drives human behavior, Bernays sought to harness those forces to sell products for his clients in his 1928 book, Propaganda. Bernays you see the word, that by understanding the group's mind, hypothesized that by understanding the group's mind, Esau does a diligent search, it would be possible to manipulate people's behavior without their even realizing it. To test his hypotheses, Bernays launched one of his most famous public relation campaigns, convincing women to smoke. That's the thing. This man is set up to be an adversary to the Most High, Yahweh, Ba'ashem Yahushua, to all that is righteous. He's the adversary that, thus he having that title given Satan, being the adversary to the Most High. It says in 1929, it was taboo for women to smoke in public, and those who flaunted conventions floated conventions were thought to be sexually promiscuous. Benet's client was George Washington Hill, president of the American Tobacco Company. See, these people, these business tycoons, these well-to-do people that are not, for the most part, government officials, but still hold the puppet strings to the politicians or the men or the agencies or the entities behind these. What I should say, they are the ones that fund men like Edwards Bernays and fraud. You ever see those movies where they're trying to come up with an AI or new technology and whatnot, and you have these investors that pump in hundreds of millions of dollars into these ideas? This is what we're seeing here now. This is what we're reading. George Washington Hill, president of American Tobacco Company, who envisioned breaking this taboo to broaden the market for his Lucky Stripes brand. He was the investor into this propaganda. So he funded Bernays, but as an employee to sell his product, to break this taboo of women smoking cigarettes and being labeled promiscuous. Bernays asked Hill for permission to consult with New York's leading psychoanalyst and fraud disciple, Dr. A. Brill, and was granted the unusual request. This was the first but not the last time Bernays would consult with psychoanalysts to help shape his public relation campaign. Now, mind you, the word public relation and propaganda are one and the same. It says when asked what cigarettes symbolize to women, Brill's response was the cigarettes were symbolic of male power. So it was symbolic to male power. Now, mind you, this was in the late 1920s. So we're getting some insight on how women were empowered, and this probably was one of the catalysts to women empowerment or to the feminist movement. I know it's a stretch, but anyway, equating smoking with challenging male power was the cornerstone of Lucky Stripes' Torches of Freedom campaign, which debuted during New York's annual Easter parade on April 1st, 1929. Bernays had produced a list of debutantes from the editor of Vogue magazine and pitched the idea that could contribute to the expansion of women's rights. There it is. I didn't even know that about women's rights, by lighting up cigarettes and smoking them in the most public of places, Fifth Avenue. The press was warned beforehand and couldn't resist the story. This was one of the catalysts to this feminist movement. It reads, the Torches of Freedom parade was covered not only by the local papers, but also by newspapers nationwide and internationally. Bernays was duly convinced that linking products to emotions could cause people to behave irrationally. Listen to that. Bernays was duly convinced that linking products to emotions. Now, I'm going to go out on a limb here, and this is no stoke at women. I'm just going to speak the truth. Are not women the most emotional beings walking on two legs? There it is. And that's just the facts, It's, don't take it as a personal jab. It's just the facts. Most women would admit that. It says, Bernays was duly convinced that linking products to emotions could cause people to behave irrationally. In reality, of course, women were no freer from having taken up smoking, but linking smoking to women's rights fostered a feeling of independence. It says, bringing home the bacon. And I'm not going to read that right there. I'm not going to read that. But I'm going to just stroll just ever so slightly. Because I didn't want this to be too long, just in case you want to read it. You can stop and pause the video and read it. American popular culture. Even the father of public relations couldn't engineer frauds constant to participate so openly in American popular culture. And matter of fact, let me just jump. I had a video I was looking at. But yes, just through the spirit, I seen Fraud's name, and it prompted me to
What I'm about to share with you makes me sick to my stomach. Every day, there are 3,000 property owners losing their properties to tax foreclosure every business day. Now, this is not even the worst.
Look at who influences eating habits. The answer is doctors and physicians. Edward Bernays persuaded women to smoke. He convinced the public that bacon and eggs were the true all-American breakfast. He also facilitated the successful overthrow of a democratically elected Guatemalan president. How did one man achieve these remarkable accomplishments? The methods he used to achieve these astonishing events are explained in his book, Propaganda. What is propaganda? Propaganda nowadays is seen as a synonym for lies. It implies half-truths, selective history, bias, misleading information, and other tricks.
propaganda nowadays is perceived as good or bad, half-truths, lies, misleading information, bias, elective history. That's the foundation of America. Half-truths, propaganda, false flag events, biasness, misleading information. And they use a psychological term called projecting, whereas I blame you before you blame me, because I'm guilty of what I'm about to blame you, or what I'm blaming you. I'm guilty of that. So they use that, what you call projecting. How do they incorporate this? By the men of the Lord filtering out news media platforms, news of the days that comes out daily. All of these different things that we see on the TV, we filter them by way of the scriptures, and they label them as what? Disinformation or misleading information. But as you're about to find out in this video, this same government employed psychoanalysts such as Sigmund Freud and Edward Bernays, his nephew, to actually to control a population, to actually do unto you what they have made laws vaguely saying that you are doing unto the government.
He also facilitated the successful overthrow of a democratically elected Guatemalan president. How did one man achieve these remarkable accomplishments? The methods he used to achieve these astonishing events are explained in his book, Propaganda. What is propaganda? Propaganda nowadays is seen as a synonym for lies. It implies half-truths, selective history, bias, misleading information and other tricks. However, it can be used in a positive manner. For example, a campaign to improve public health through vaccination. When used in such a constructive way, it can be a progressive force, capable of improving and benefiting every life and every home. Specific propaganda should be seen as good or bad depending on the merit of the cause urged and the correctness of the information published. Modern propaganda is a consistent and continuing effort to create or shape events to influence public relations on an enterprise idea or group. Edward Bernays worked for the Woodrow Wilson administration in the First World War.
Mind you, the Woodrow Wilson administration in the First World War. Woodrow Wilson was what? An elected, quote-unquote, U.S. president. Therefore, a servant of the people. A government employee. So in retrospect, the government was employing or using these tactics on the people from the jump.
A propaganda model promoting America's war efforts as bringing democracy to Europe. After swaying the public across the world with this slogan, he set to work on employing propaganda in peacetime. Due to negative implications surrounding the word propaganda because of its use by the Germans in the war, he promoted the term public relations.
That's the connection between propaganda and public relations.
Due to negative implications surrounding the word propaganda because of its use by the Germans in the war, he promoted the term public relations. Public relations expert is concerned with bringing an idea to the awareness of the public using modern media communications and group formations of society. They act as an advisor to their clients. Edward Bernays had an impressive list of these clients, ranging from media companies such as Time Inc., CBS and NBC, through to individuals such as the President of the United States. He was not just a propagandist. He was concerned with courses of action, policies, systems and opinions, and the securing of public support for them. His responsibilities even included discovering new markets. The most famous new market Bernays was asked to uncover was that of women smoking cigarettes in the late 1920s. Up until then, women smoking in public was seen as a social taboo. Bernays set about removing this taboo to potentially double tobacco companies' possible clientele. First, he contacted a psychoanalyst to understand the societal perceptions that dissuaded women from smoking. He found that for feminists, cigarettes were like torches of freedom that symbolised their non-conformity and freedom from male oppression. He used this information to formulate a strategy and got a group of stylish women to march in an Easter Day parade. Prior to the parade, he had told the press that a group of women's rights marchers would light torches of freedom. On his cue, the women lit up their cigarettes in front of the eager photographers. The result was press coverage in several major newspapers, including the New York Times, which helped to break the taboo against women smoking in public. The study of mass psychology has brought to light the fact that a group can have certain mental characteristics distinct from that of an individual. Learning how the masses are influenced by various factors allows us to affect change in public opinion with a fair amount of accuracy. However, propaganda will never be an exact science, in the same way psychology or sociology isn't, because they deal with humans. If you can influence leaders, you automatically influence the groups they rule or have authority over. The group mind has impulses, emotions and habits, rather than thoughts as such. It makes up its mind by impulsively following the example of a trusted leader or authority figure. If this is not available, the herd thinks by cliches or images that stand for a group of experiences or ideas. An old propagandists would treat the human mind as an individual machine and rely on certain stimulus, often repeated, creating a habit. Similarly, they would reiterate an idea to create conviction with individuals. For example, to advertise bacon and eggs, adverts would contain phrases along the lines of, "Eat more eggs," "Bacon is good for you," and "Bacon and eggs are cheap and healthy." A new propagandist such as Bernays, who understands group psychology, would first look at who influences eating habits. The answer is doctors and physicians. They would then suggest to these doctors and physicians to publicly state that eating bacon and eggs is good for you. The propagandist knows that a large number of people will follow the advice of their doctor due to the psychological relationship between a person and their doctor. A doctor signifies health, which in turn signifies long life. Bernays used these exact methods of leader influence to convince the public that bacon and eggs were the true all-American breakfast. Bernays sold more bacon, not by telling Americans that bacon is tasty, but by asking doctors the question, is it more healthy to eat a hearty breakfast or a skimpy breakfast? His advertisements then said, 9 out of 10 doctors recommend a hearty breakfast like this one, with a photo of bacon and eggs. An old advertiser would try to persuade an individual to buy an item immediately. For example, buy this piano, now. Using reiteration and emphasis directed upon the individual, the advertiser tries to break down sales resistance. A new advertiser would, instead of directly penetrating sales resistance, try to remove it by creating circumstances that will swing emotional currents that will build purchaser demand. For example, a new advertiser, when selling a piano, would try to develop acceptance of the idea of a music room in a house, perhaps by arranging an exhibition of music rooms by well-known designers, inviting key people of influence with regards to buying habits, i.e. famous musicians. The music room will be accepted, and people with a music room will naturally think of buying a piano, believing it comes as their own idea. Instead of saying to the purchaser, "Please buy a piano," they have caused the purchaser to say, "Please sell me a piano." All these methods and techniques were used for Bernays' most extreme propaganda campaign, the overthrow of the Guatemalan government. The government had introduced labour laws that allowed workers to strike if their demand for higher wages were not met. The United Fruit Company had been the largest landowner and employer in Guatemala for several years, and these laws would affect their profits. Edward Bernays was hired by the United Fruit Company to persuade Americans that the then Guatemalan president, Jacobo Arbenz, was a communist, when in reality he was a liberal capitalist. Bernays ran an intensive campaign of misinformation to portray the company as the victim of the government for several years, including taking American journalists to Guatemala and arranging for them to interview only those who opposed Arbenz. Bernays' involvement led to US President Eisenhower to intervene, and ultimately Arbenz was overthrown in a US-sponsored coup designed to make the world safe for large US corporations.
Try this strange 10-second technique tonight to reverse high blood sugar while you sleep.
Hey, there you have it. A 5-minute lesson in propaganda. And we find that this man, he does a very diligent search. You know, these men that they employ seem to have years or generational studies in certain fields, whether it be finances, psychological, medicine, so forth and so on. You know, they tend to have very extensive study in it, which leads me to this scripture right here. Let's see what it is. Jeremiah 17, Slacky. And no, that's not it. Slacky. Hey, Slacky. It's the book of Psalms, I believe. It's the book of Psalms. Make it 6 Psalms. This is Psalm 64:4, and it reads, "They shoot that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. They encourage themselves in an evil manner. They commune of lying snares privily. They say, who shall see them? These propagandists, and these are tactics that they use right now to this very day. He's not the first, but he's the one acknowledged for coming up with that term, propaganda and public relation. And mind you, he's the nephew, Slakia. He's the nephew of Sigmund Freud, they want to grant being the father of psychology. If you take up any course in junior college or one of these universities dealing with psychology, pre-psych and so forth, it's almost impossible not to come across the name Sigmund Freud. Thus, back in the scripture here, they do a diligent search. And the men who are able to fund their research and whatnot, who are able to push their agenda on the world by and large, be it private investors or government officials like presidents and their administrations, which are funded by the private entities, just like these scientists and these men in these fields and whatnot. They're funded by private individuals, with very wealthy private individuals. It says that they may shoot in secret at the perfect. Suddenly do they shoot at him and fear not. They encourage themselves in an evil manner. They commune of laying snares privily. They propped up this feminist movement back in the late 20s. Torches of freedom. That's what they called the cigarettes back then. And the journalists and news anchor people and whatnot, they was informed of this prior to that Easter parade in 1929. It says, who shall see them? Because this is all done behind the scene, It says, verse 6, they search out iniquities, They search out wicked things, you know what I'm talking about? They accomplish a diligent search. They go and question doctors and lawyers and this and that and the third. That's how they push bacon and eggs on you, garbage can and eggs. And what did he ask the doctor? What is I can't remember what the question, how he laid the question, but the doctor and said that a more satisfying breakfast meal, something to that sort. And so he worked his magic, his left hand magic, off of the studies of these certain physicians, and used the doctor to promote it, because most people see doctors as gods, especially you elderly black people, so-called black people, because you're hooked on that abominable meats right now to the day. You ask a lot of these jakes, my doctor said. Anyway, it says they search out iniquities. They accomplish a diligent search, both the inward thought of every one of them, and the heart is deep. They're deep with this. These things are not privileged to Jake. It's public information if one wants to find out these things, but that's far beyond the scope of what Jake thinks of day in and day out. Jake's not concerned about things like this. Jake just assumed get up and go buy a Big Mac and a Coca-Cola and some formaldehyde fries. All poison. Stuck on stupid, But we're not to be ignorant of these things and not tricked by the tricks of this devil, man. This so-called white man. And his propaganda machine, We're not to be, wooed or weighed or tricked. This is Ephesians 6:11, and it reads, I'm going to start at 10 and see, and it reads, it says, finally, my brethren, be strong in the Lord Yahweh Shem Yahushua, and in the power of his might. It says, put on, verse 11, put on the whole armor of Yahweh, that ye may be able to stand against the wiles of the devil. And that wile goes into tricks and snares and whatnot. Matter of fact, I'm going to just grab it real quick. And how you do put on the armor, man? You apply these laws, statutes, commandments that you're being taught, that we all are being taught.
Strong's G 3180. Methodiah.
Damn, I had that damn volume up the whole time. It's going to be sounding all loud, fan in the background. Anyway, it says outline of biblical use: cunning, art, deceit, craft, trickery. This propaganda, this public relation campaign against the people by and large is craft, cunning, art, deceit, trickery, Compound, it says compared method, traveling over, traverse, trickery, wiles, lie and wait. Lie and wait. Lie and wait. We had read that in Psalm 60. Matter of fact, let's go back to it real quick. It says lie and wait. Where it says they suddenly shoot at them. Here it is right here, verse 5 in Psalm 64 and 5. They encourage themselves in an evil manner. They commune of lying snares. They lie in wait. They laying traps. Using public relation, a.k.a. propaganda, to overthrow governments, to get you to eat abominable foods, to get you to defile your body, and make these things look profitable, make them look good, make them look like things to do when they're really taboo, even in society sense. But, the society by and large has been propaganda, been tricked, been conned into believing these things are something worth gloating and boasting about, especially when you got a doctor being the pitch man for foolishness like this, But I want to grab another thing dealing with that. Let's see. I think it's second. I think that's it. This is 2 Corinthians 2 and 11. It reads, "Lest Satan should get an advantage of us, we are not ignorant of his devices." That's what these scriptures are about, man. I mean, you can have a feeling, hey, smoking ain't good for me. You can have a feeling that this pork is giving you gout, giving you headaches, high blood, hypertension, whatever they call it nowadays. You can have a feeling, and that's that feeling that you're getting is the spirit, that righteous spirit in you telling you, hey, this ain't good for my health. But then at the same time, you have the cunning, the wildness, the wiles of the society by way of men that are funded in certain fields to persuade you to do otherwise, to have you to embrace these things as though they're a badge of honor. That's why the scriptures say, "Least Satan should get an advantage of us." We're not ignorant of his devices. We understand this not to be the case. We understand that doing these things goes against your health, and it goes against the law, statutes, and commandments, because we know them by reading the Levitical laws and whatnot. We can go to the book in Leviticus and whatnot and see, hey, it's defiling the temple. That's abominable foods. You know what I'm talking about? We're not fooled by these things, but hey, by and large, this devil, hey, he wake up lying. That's part of his nature, man. He wakes up lying. He comes out the womb lying. Matter of fact, we're gonna grab that real quick. This is Psalms. I'm gonna start at this Psalm 58 and 2. I'm gonna start at 2. It says, "Yea, in heart ye work wickedness. Ye weigh the violence of your hands in the earth." It says, verse 6, "The wicked are estranged from the womb. They go astray as soon as they be born, speaking lies." And Edward Bernays, I think his name is, being the nephew of Sigmund Freud, both by Sigmund's sister and Sigmund's wife. This man was born into this family promoting lies, man. And in doing so, these lies, these certain attributes that they have used to sway and to mislead the public by and large are assigned to them as though they came up with this themselves. You know what I'm saying? As though they came up with this all by themselves, But we know that's not the case. It was nothing I was thinking about. Let's see. I think it came out of that. Let's see. I'm gonna close this out. I just thought a few precepts. I ain't want that. Didn't want that one. Let's see. What's another I was thinking about? Yeah. I'm gonna get up out of here with this one right here. Well, willing, it was edifying. Let me see. If I go to let's go to the Apocrypha real quick. Let's go to Apocrypha. Is it? I think this is it right here. And this just bagging up, the Ecclesiasticus. The 2 Corinthians and the Ephesians, You can't be ignorant of anything when it comes to this so-called white man and what he's trying to push, because you got these damn weather balloons and whatnot. That could be something that them, these white folks themselves is just propping up, because there's other things that are happening behind closed doors, that they're keeping out of the front pages of the news. As you've seen in that clip, this man Edward Bernays was hired by government officials, presidential cabinets, different what it was during the World War One, the Eisenhower, not Eisenhower, but damn, I can't even think his name. But he was hired by presidents. He was hired by mainstream news platforms. He was hired by big business industries. From overthrowing governments to pushing cigarettes and bad food on the people, to dealing with doctors and pharmaceutical companies to win you over. This is Ecclesiasticus, aka Sirach 5:15. It reads, "Be not ignorant of anything in a great or small." Let's read it again. "Be not ignorant of anything in a great matter or a small." And Jake, by and large, don't think that these things are important. They think like buying a Gucci belt and a Gucci bag or something, or going to purchase a Mercedes Benz, for status purposes only. They think that that's important. And the things that we bring out in the scriptures by way of the Spirit of Yahweh Shem Yahushua are just, for lack of better words, niggas with Bibles. I'm going to close out with this here. This is Exodus 23:2, and it reads, "Thus thou shalt not follow a multitude to do evil, neither shalt thou speak in a cause to decline after many to wrest judgment." So, as men of the Lord, men, women, and children that have come into this fold, Lord willing, you all be of that fold, beginning with the apostle elders. You understand that you've been separated from the world for a purpose, and you're to hold fast to that. Stay in a repentant spirit, stay in a humble spirit, and stay in a praying spirit. And at all times, try to apply these laws, statutes, and commandments to your everyday life. Rehearse the righteous acts. Lord willing, it was edifying. I'm going to give all praise and honor to the Most High and His Son, Yahweh Bashim Yahushua. Double honors to the Apostle Elders, Great Millstone,